By the way, just so we're clear, I meant on the other side of the break, not like the other side. Okay.
Don't you go dying on me!
With that in mind, my wife and I purchased a piggy bank for a kid's first birthday. Another friend incredulously asked me, "Why would a kid want a piggy bank?" Don't you love how you can just make people who disagree with you sound stupid with a stupid voice? It's a great technique. I suggest you use it. But anyway, I digressed. Well, anyway, I was delighted to later very smugly send this person, my skeptical friend, a Snapchat of this lovely young family unloading their piggy bank and starting a bank account. See, my family instilled those values in me at a very early age, and it made my day to see this young guy doing the same for his kiddos. Now, of course, Mr. John Maynard Keynes would have you believe that saving, or at least too much saving, is bad, and in fact is hoarding. Because in Keynes' world, money simply needs to be constantly changing hands in order for the economy to work. Keynes believes that money is equivalent to wealth. I like to picture Keynes wagging his grubby little finger at this family, shaming their silly notion of saving. But again, does constant consumption automatically grow wealth even without production? Does employment lead to wealth overall for society, no matter what the employees are being paid to do? Well, let's examine Keynes' own words versus reality. From his book, The General Theory, quote, "If the Treasury were to fill up old bottles with banknotes, bury them at suitable depths in disused coal mines, which are then filled up to the surface with town rubbish, and leave it to the private enterprise on well-tried principles of laissez-faire to dig the notes up again, the right to do so being obtained, of course, by tendering the leases of the note-bearing territory, there need to be no more unemployment. And with the help of the repercussions, the real income of the community and its capital wealth also would probably become a good deal greater than it actually is. It would indeed be more sensible to build houses and the like, but if there are practical and political difficulties in the way of doing this, the above would be better than nothing." Okay, wow, that was one really long sentence it felt like. But anyway, ultimately, this is nothing more than a version of Bastiat's broken window fallacy. But I'll update it for a more modern audience and call it the broken smartphone fallacy, since I'm guessing 90% of you watching this have a smartphone. If I see a bunch of people at Applebee's with their phones on the bar, and I take a ball-peen hammer and crack all of their screens with it, should I expect a thank you for this act of economic stimulus? Now, obviously, the smartphone repairman would benefit from this act, and if no one ever cracked their phone screen, his business would fold and all his employees would be out of a job. But what about the people with the cracked screens? Sure, the helpful repairman fixes the phones, but what would the people have done with those resources instead, including their time and money? That is, as Bastiat would say, the unseen, the opportunity cost, if you will. Again, this is where Keynes falsely assumes production comes from consumption/spending. It doesn't even matter what kind of spending is taking place in his world. Trades are trades. Of course, in reality, your wealth is increased when you exchange dollars for the phone, which you clearly valued more than the dollars at the time of purchase. However, a broken phone that is fixed merely gets you back to your previous state of wealth. Make no mistake, that's not to criticize the repairman. Accidents happen and phones need to be fixed. He is merely reacting to demand. There's a great story of economist Milton Friedman visiting Indonesia, where he observed a bunch of laborers digging a long trench with shovels. When Friedman asked his companion why the laborers were using shovels and not industrial equipment, his companion answered, "It employs more people to use shovels." To which Friedman replied, "If it's employment you want, then why don't you give them spoons?" To reiterate, Keynes was a brilliant mathematician, an excellent investor, and by all accounts, an extreme optimist. But like many clever people, hubris got him in the end. It's the classic tale of Icarus. See, Keynes believed he was so smart he could trick people into consuming, and if that cycle of consumption continued, everything would be fine. The pound's buying power be damned. He thought he could do math for an entire country. But the human brain is as complex as anything on Earth. Each one is a unique input. People's preferences can and will change on a dime. Again, our subjective values are all different and they're dynamic. Who was John Maynard Keynes to decide the value of anything? He was a smart guy, but he was also no deity. Perhaps the most famous quote attributed to Keynes is, "In the long run, we're all dead." Well, that's humorous, and like all good humor, there's obviously some truth into it. It's also one of the linchpins of Keynes' philosophy and theories. Live today, tomorrow be damned, especially if tomorrow means when we're all dead. But that's a selfish way of looking at the world, especially if you're influential in public policy, because even though Keynes is, in fact, dead, there are about 7 billion of us still living. And it's not in any way an exaggeration to say that all of us are living with the consequences of his widely adopted theories. Oh, by the way, Keynes had 0 children, just as an aside. Finally, if you've attended college, you've probably noticed the tendency to bifurcate economics into microeconomics and macroeconomics. Well, here's the secret. Micro, that's the good stuff. Supply and demand, opportunity cost, that sort of thing. Macro, that's Keynes. That's where they tell you that everything you learned in micro doesn't apply to the big, important macro stuff like the money supply and interest rates. See, for the big stuff, we need clever people like Keynes in central control. I assure you all of this is pseudo-intellectual gobbledygook. And if you can avoid taking macroeconomics, please do so. See, this false macro paradigm is one of the biggest reasons for all of the economic confusion. And it's one of the biggest reasons that I'm doing this show, and I'm trying to get rid of some of this confusion. Okay, now speaking of interest rates, that's our next topic of great significance, and I'll see you there.